with my friend Jeff Farner initially and see where we go.
Okay.
But thanks,
Welcome
Karen.
aboard, Joe.
Good.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Hi, Destiny.
Hello, everyone.
Kathy, if you can, Kathy?
Yeah.
If you can dull or close the shade behind you, we'd be able to see you now. All we see is a silhouette.
Glare.
I can. It's not
That's
that
my
type of shade. That's as much as I can do.
Okay,
How's everybody doing?
then we
Hey.
need a big smile to reflect off your teeth.
Right.
Did someone ask a question?
I was going to say, I can see only 4 people at a time. Is there a way to be able to see everybody? I am using my phone.
Hi, Cheryl.
Can you scroll down?
No, it's on, is there an arrow on the side of the 4?
Yes.
Click on that arrow and you should see the next 4.
Okay. All right. So I'll see 4 at a time.
It's 14 hours.
On the phone, that's the limit.
All right. Well, it's 2 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and get started. If you all would do me a favor and mute all of your mics, that would be great. Sometimes we get background noise if we don't do that in these, so I'm sure by this point everybody's used to that.
Destiny, could you record this? We did have a couple tutors who couldn't come.
Yes, yeah, we're recording. So yeah, if everyone will just go ahead and mute, even as you're hopping on, that would be great. Thank you all so much for making time for this. I know that everybody has stuff going on, maybe not as busy as we normally are, but that you're still living lives and have other things going on. So thank you all so much. And I know multiple faces have been on multiple trainings over the last couple of weeks. So thank you all so much for hanging in there with us. We appreciate it. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up a slideshow here. My goal is to be finished in about an hour and a half, which one of the ways that we'll do that is I'm not going to do questions until the end when we're finished. So if you do have questions, maybe Anne and Karina, if you could help me look at the chat box, and if there is anything in there, we can kind of answer those at the end or be preparing to answer those at the end. So if you have questions during and you don't want to forget, you can type them in the chat box or jot a note down, and then at the very end, we'll try to cover everything. So, all right. I'm going to share my screen. Okay. And can everyone see me, or can you all see the slideshow here? Yes, okay. I see some heads nodding. Awesome. All right, let me do this. All right, so thank you guys, and again, welcome to the training. So we are going to discuss specifically the Venture series and kind of the role that it will play within our fall classes. So many of you have been in the Burlington English trainings with us. And just to kind of clarify or repeat, I know we've said this in a couple other trainings, but the Burlington English will serve just for online curriculum. So kind of the way we're looking at the fall semester right now is there's 2 different tracks. So for students who either don't feel comfortable coming to classes in person, or maybe who are on like what would have been last year a waiting list, they would qualify for online or virtual only classes. And those will be facilitated by Burlington English, which is an approved curriculum with the South Carolina Department of Adult Education. So in our May tutor updates meeting, we kind of talked about how we have several things that the state of South Carolina will basically be auditing our program with, and it's called the 13 considerations. And one of those is that we're using approved curriculum for our classes. So that audit is happening next year, which is one of the reasons we'd already kind of started migrating to a standardized curriculum. But so for online classes, that will be Burlington, and that's facilitated by Zoom. So for those of you who have done the Burlington English training, which we've had about 3 now, You've seen kind of how we screen share and basically do what I'm doing now, but it's with Burlington English's developed curriculum. For our in-class lessons, we're going to be using Ventures, and they are physical textbooks, and then they come with student workbooks as well. And there are also teacher editions for the Ventures, which we'll talk about in a minute. But what's nice about Ventures as well, and I've spent some time, about 2 hours on the phone with a Ventures rep recently, and she was kind of helping me delve into a little bit more the digital options that Ventures provides. But there is a digital textbook as well as some digital supplementary materials that Ventures offers, which is a good thing, because if we were to go into a shelter-in-place type of scenario in the fall, like many people are anticipating, there are options for that. So we'll get into that a little bit more, but that's just kind of an overview of those, kind of what those two tracks will look like. So why Ventures in particular? Like I said, it meets the South Carolina adult education requirements, which is hugely important for our program and our performance with South Carolina Adult Ed. It incorporates career readiness in the curriculum. So again, in the May 14th tutor updates meeting, we introduced you all who were there to Kim Kochman, who's our new college and career navigator. And her sole job is to ensure that we help students transition from our ESL classes into job opportunities here locally, or secondary education, if that is an interest that the students have. And so one of the reasons we really like the Ventures curriculum is that it does incorporate job preparation skills, what South Carolina Adult Ed calls hard and soft career skills, in the curriculum at each level. And then the final level, or the sixth textbook for Ventures, is called Ventures Transitions. And that book is designed to help students transition into the job force in the US, as well as into secondary education, if that's something that they want. So that fit really well with what some of our goals were as a program already. So that was pretty exciting for us. There's also a comprehensive coverage of the critical ESL components. So we'll look at the scope and sequence here in a minute, but Ventures covers listening and speaking skills, vocabulary, grammar, reading, writing, life skills, and pronunciation. And when you're, an instructor in the classroom and you're kind of compiling your own lesson plans throughout an entire, what has been school year and in the future will be a semester, it's really difficult to make sure, because most of us are not curriculum developers, that we're incorporating each one of those ESL or linguistic components into our lesson plans every single week. So one of the things that helps do is take all the guesswork out of making sure we have all of those modalities represented in what we're teaching our students. There's also some scaffolded instruction, which is really important. And what that basically means is that there's a buildup in the difficulty level for each book. But again, it's focusing on all of those modalities. So a student from level 1 to level 6 will see an increase in listening and speaking, vocabulary, grammar, reading. And it's a really organized kind of step up system, because we're all kind of utilizing a standardized curriculum, which is really important for just student growth and for learning kind of holistically. And then digital tools, like I mentioned before. So if we have a shelter in place type of scenario, there's the online textbook, and then there's also an online workbook, which I will show you all, and something called an arcade, which I will show you all in a little bit as well. So let's move forward here. Okay, just some general information about the Ventures. So each Venture set includes a couple things. So there's a student book that is just like kind of your standard textbook. It has the lesson plans in it. And then there's a student workbook that pairs with that textbook. And the student would receive a new one for each level of Ventures that they are participating in. And then each Ventures level also includes a teacher's edition with details for instructing each lesson. So what's great about that is, and we'll hear from some tutors in a little bit about how they use that, but it does offer for, we have a really wide range of volunteers. So we have people who were educators for 20 years and are really comfortable teaching and instructing. And then we also have people who were in completely different fields and careers prior to volunteering with us, have no background in education, and it's a little bit daunting to figure out how to go ahead and instruct a whole lesson. So these teachers' editions do take a lot of the guesswork out of that for instructors who want to use that. So it will tell you, and we'll look at a sample page in a little bit, but how to introduce each lesson, how to walk through the different activities in each lesson with the students, even what to write on the whiteboard for each portion of the lesson. So it does play by play walk you through what the expectation is and what the objectives are for each lesson, which is great. And then this also does, the lessons are designed for about an hour and a half. So it does leave some time, like we talked about again, I know I'm referencing this meeting a lot. So if you have questions and weren't able to attend, please let me know later. But the May 14th tutor updates meeting, we talked about how we do still want there to be an ability for you to incorporate supplementary material or other things that you think are important for your students to be able to learn. And one thing I like to do is include YouTube videos. So if we're talking about grammar, sometimes I'll find these little grammar videos that kind of make it like a cartoon and fun. But it will kind of add and supplement what we're already doing in the lesson. So I know some people really enjoy like News for You, or there are tons of resources for ESL students. And this does leave some time for you to incorporate those into your lessons as well. So. Okay, I don't know how well everyone can see this, but this is is it tiny on your screen? I don't know if I don't think I can zoom in on this slide, but I can kind of describe what's in there. This is kind of
Destiny.
Uh-huh.
Destiny, the person can make it bigger on their own screen by touching it. Yeah, if you individually do it, you can make it bigger.
Okay, and I'll kind of read and highlight. Thank you for that, Janet. I'll kind of read and highlight what we're looking at as well. But so this is the scope and sequence, which all of you have been or most of you have been volunteers in the past. You've seen the scope and sequence from that we've been, TLC has been using it for years. But so this is the venture scope and sequence. And again, it complies with all the national standards that we need it to. But you can kind of see here how for this unit, it's going to show you the different topics on this column here. I actually have a little pointer I could use. So the unit topics are on this side, in this column, and then the different modalities it's focusing on that we talked about earlier up here. So for example, if we look at Unit 2 at school, you can see here that as far as the functions, you're focusing on describing a location and finding out location. For listening and speaking, you're focusing on asking and giving location of things. And then saying, excuse me, is what you're going to focus on as far as the listening and speaking skill for this unit. For the vocabulary, you're focusing on classroom furniture and classroom objects. And then for the grammar focus, you're focusing on prepositions of location. So in, on, under, the question where is, asking and answering the question where is. Singular and plural nouns, yes and no questions, this or that, and these and those, and then contractions. So you're kind of seeing a breakdown for each unit of what the lesson focus is. And again, with that scaffolding, you're covering it in on every level, just with different topics. So a beginning student would have more simple topics and an advanced student which would have more complex topics. So this is kind of just a continuation of that, and I'm gonna kind of slide past this. And we're gonna look at some examples here of Unit 8, which is work, job, and skills, and I'll show you that in a second. So we're looking at Level 1, Unit 8, and this is a sample teacher's edition. And I just wanted to kind of show you, and I know this is really tiny, but I just scanned the teacher's edition just so you can kind of see what it looks like. This page, as you'll see in a minute, is the exact same as the student lesson, but here is where it's breaking down for the teachers exactly what you're going to do for the warm-up and review. So it says, before class, write today's lesson focus on the board. So like I was saying, it tells you exactly what to write. It says lesson A, we're focusing on working on vocabulary and names of occupations. It tells you what you do when you begin class. So it says the students will start with their books closed. You'll write on the board work and you'll point to the word, and then you'll ask the class or say to the class, today's class is about work. What are some different kinds of jobs? And you're going to want to elicit different occupations from the students. So maybe they'd say teacher or waiter, and you talk about different types of jobs. Then you'll ask the students, do you work? And you're going to elicit yes or no answers. Again, this is for Level 1. So this is going to be like a beginner level. So this is going to be different than what you would ask again, or what the teacher book would say for an advanced level. But it will have this same format: warm up and review. Then it's going to go into what you'd say during the presentation of the lesson. It's going to check comprehension. Slide this over. It's going to have some practice components. So it's going to tell you exactly how you're going to work through the exercise in the student book. An expansion activity. So anytime you see these, it's just, you can basically lengthen the lesson with these additional activities. So there is some flexibility with that time constraint as well. But you can break the students into small groups and have them do these expansion activities. This is an expansion activity for student pairs, so you could pair students up. And then a whole group exercise. And then this is the page 2 of that lesson for the teacher's edition. So it's continuing the presentation, practice, comprehension check, and then application. One thing to note too is that the Venture series does have CDs that it pairs with. So right here you can see it says CD2 track 21, and these are for the listening exercises. It actually has someone reading out kind of the exercises and everything that you need, and the students can listen to conversations. So that is a great tool as well. And we will have CD players in each classroom in the fall as well. So you'll have access to that, and each book includes the CD with it. So students will actually have access to the CDs too if they want to go back and listen to lesson plans. And then this is the 3rd edition of Venture. So there are also these, which I'll show you in the digital textbook. It's kind of cool how these work, but there are QR codes, and it will also pull up the audio in the textbook on your smartphone. So if the student doesn't want to use a CD player, they feel comfortable enough that they just kind of use the QR code and pull it up on their smartphone. Or if you feel comfortable enough to do that, that's another option of accessing these. Okay, this is the cover. So we're moving on to the student book now. This is the cover of the student book. Again, it's the same level. We're looking at the same unit, level 1, unit 8. And it's this unit on work. So as you can see in the teacher edition, we talked about this picture, and they explained, you want to ask the students, what professions do you see? That was in the teacher workbook. The students have this exact same picture in their workbook. So you're not having to like share with them or anything like that. They're looking at this exact same replica of what we saw in the teacher's edition, obviously without the teacher prompts and all of that. And then again, they have these QR codes for the listening that we talked about that were also in the teacher's edition. And then they have the exercises, and they're walking you through for each lesson what you're going to do on the exercises. One of the things I did notice is that, so this is a lesson here. So lesson A, and then you've moved on to lesson B. It looks really short in the student workbook, but again, there are a lot of things that the teacher is doing in the classroom beyond just this. That do make it the length that it is. So whenever you do get these books and you're looking at them, these lessons look really short. And when I was first looking at this, I was like, this doesn't look like enough material, but it actually is when you look at the teacher's edition and the breakdown. And then lesson B, this is what this kind of looks like moving forward. So for the students. And this is, I just kind of copied the whole unit so you can kind of see what the grammar focus is, practice, how the different exercises look. Again, QR codes with each lesson. These are some conversations that the students can have with one another. So one student would be person A, the other would be person B, and you all have seen this in some of the other materials used in the past, but just different dialogues for the students to be able to practice, writing activities, all of that. This lesson D is a reading focus. So you can kind of see how this mirrors the scope and sequence, but with the lessons. And then lesson E is writing. Again, this is a whole unit. This is unit 8. Just wanted to give you kind of an idea of what a whole unit looks like. And then one thing I do really like too is that each unit ends with a review. So you'll review the concepts from the unit that you've just covered. That's always really important, with any type of education, but especially with ESL, that you're kind of going back and reviewing the topics. And that's something that I've found that's really hard to incorporate when I'm building my own lessons. It's like the one thing that I feel like I have a harder time including is kind of compiling everything and reviewing the concepts. So I like that this pulls the most important topics out of the unit. and you're going to cover them one more time with the students. And it's listening, grammar, there's some writing exercises. And then I liked this too, that they have a little assessment for the student, and they're basically asking kind of what did you learn? So vocabulary, check the words that you know now. So they'll check apples, bananas, cashier, all the words that they've learned in this unit. Skills and functions, so it'll say read the sentences and check what sentences you know. I can ask questions using how many and how much. How many eggs do we have? How much coffee do we have? So it's a good way even for the instructor to kind of see what the students are saying that they understand and that they've learned from that unit. And it will do that again for the end of each unit. So then we've looked at the teacher's edition, we've looked at the student lesson book, and now we're going to look at the student workbook. Again, this is the same level, same unit, lesson A. And I just wanted to show you how these exercises look. Again, there are digital components of this, but this is the paper, the print version, and it comes in a packet with the student workbook or the student lesson book. So any student who receives a student lesson book will also have this workbook. And it's additional exercises to reinforce the material from lesson A. So we were talking about work in this unit. And this is what the exercises look like in this. So it has unscramble letters, answering questions, where do people work, use words from exercise 1. So again, they'll have to reference their lesson book for this, which they will have. Match the occupations with the pictures. So just different exercises that reinforce the material from the lesson. We kind of mentioned this, I'm being a little redundant, but unit structure does remain the same throughout the course. So it's ensuring students are learning necessary skills regardless of topic or level. So that's that scaffolding that we were talking about. It is building on itself throughout each level, which is a really, really important component when teaching ESL. Okay, so some of the digital tools. One is eSource. The other is called Cambridge LMS. Okay. We're going to take a break in about 10 minutes, just so everybody knows. One's Cambridge LMS, and then one's the Arcade. And I'm going to show you each of these one at a time. This eSource is really the most important one. What I've kind of found with the Ventures digital tools is there's actually a ton of content there. But one of the things I always want to be careful with as we're all learning this kind of new digital environment is that we're not kind of digging so deep that it's overwhelming or that it's just adding a ton of stress. So this is the component that it's like, if we can only focus on one digital component, this eSource, which is where you access the online student book, is going to be the most important. And I'm going to show you how we use that. But I think I'm actually going to go ahead and pause here, and we'll do a couple minutes of questions. I feel like I'm just kind of talking pretty fast. So I'm going to pause on this screen share. And then let's see. And do you have questions that okay, I see that there are questions in the chat.
I've been answering them along the way, but maybe you can explain more. They were asking when samples would be available. Mm-hmm. And you'll see my notation, but you might have a better sense of when you were looking at having them order. Right.
So we kind of did a budget request and everything with the board, but we need to complete the registration process. So they didn't want us to order too many than, who we have registered. And obviously numbers could look a lot different this year. So we just finishing week 1 of registration. We'll be done next week. So the goal is to order by Thursday of next week. And tutor kickoff is August 6th, which will be, a couple weeks before. So definitely before August 6th, we'll have the teacher's editions. And then I'd like to get everyone a sample of the student and workbook edition. And we may have to do something where we stagger pickup, like a couple people come and pick up at different times. We'll do some type of schedule so it's not everybody at once. But we will get that to you at least 2 weeks prior to classes starting.
Destiny, has the Literacy Center decided to use the 3rd edition of Ventures?
Yes, yeah.
Okay,
it will be the 3rd.
I've used this 2nd edition for years.
Right.
And there's not that many changes, but enough to mean that you can't have a student using a 2nd edition book and in the same class with a student using a third edition class. They
Right.
just switch it up just enough to make it confusing.
Right, right. Yeah, we will use the third because it does have that digital component, even the QR code they've added. And then a couple of the grants that we have to be compliant with, they're compliant now with the third edition. So that's why we're definitely up. Yeah.
So Destiny, what is the deal with the students having to purchase the book and workbook?
So the fee for the books is included in the registration fee. So this year, actually, there won't be additional costs to the student. So we've bundled that all in the $150 that the students pay. So we're ordering everything on our end. So that'll make it a lot easier than
So that will give them their own book and workbook that they can write in.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay.
And that's theirs to keep. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Stephanie, are we shifting to September 8th as the start?
No, August 17th, we're still scheduled to start. Did I say September 8th? Or?
Well, the school district has just made a decision to not open until September 8th.
Gotcha. We do tend to look at the school system, and I know the board kind of has, the final say or makes the final call, but right now we're still slated for August 17th. So we'll definitely let you all know if that changes at all. Jeff?
Yeah, Destiny, so this year, the tutors are going to get all 3 books?
Yes, I'm going to go ahead and give you a student book, and we may just have you give it to the student once classes start, but just so that you can see what the student book and workbook look like.
Well,
so you have one.
Yeah, I have the student book and the workbook from last year, but it's got writing all in it, so.
Right, and it's an older edition too, so we'll get you a new edition.
I believe I have the 3rd edition. Is there a 4th?
Oh, okay. No, this is 3rd. So if you have 3rd, it would be the same.
We had the 3rd.
Okay. Okay, yeah. So
but I didn't have the teachers, so
right.
That might be helpful.
Right.
Destiny, I know we're switching to semesters. And so are they paying $150 per semester now?
Yes, because now that includes the textbooks and the testing fees, which weren't previously included. So that includes everything.
So were they previously paying $80 for the year or $90 or something?
It was $100 last year.
It was $100, okay.
Yep, yeah.
So now it'll be $300 a year. Okay.
Right.
So will they move up to a more advanced book the second semester and get another book and workbook?
Right, that's the goal. I mean, as you all know, you've had repeat students before. So if a student does end up coming back to your class, they wouldn't have to purchase an additional, they'd have the book, but.
The Ventures is 10 units, and in the past, I never got through the entire 10 units in 1 year. So the first semester would be the first part of the first half of the book, and the second semester would be the second half of the book.
The goal is that we get through the level in a semester.
That's not realistic.
Yeah.
I've never been able to cover the whole. I would cover about 4 units up to Christmas, and then another 4 units after Christmas.
Okay.
I usually get to 9 by the end in May.
To unit 9.
Yeah.
Okay. So that leaving out that last unit.
Some classes can move through the material quicker than others because the class makeup is different every year. But I've never been able to get,
through that last unit.
Book.
Okay, we'd have to look at that or reevaluate that then.
Basically, you do a lot of supplementing. It's not just going through the lesson per se, but there are a whole lot of, the same kind of activities we already do, like the one that has to do with going to the doctors, the health, it's called, that unit.
Right, where you add additional materials.
Oh yeah, and a whole class period, maybe practicing how you would call the doctor's office to make an appointment, and then role playing, going to the doctor's office and all that kind of stuff is not in the book.
Right.
But it,
yes, you would cover lesson A on one day, the next we would lesson B, and then lesson C. And that would normally take about an hour. And then the other hour I would do supplemental or reading of stories or whatever. But if you wanted to cover like lesson A and B in one class, it would be pretty tedious and dry for the students to be.
Would also be a lot of material because you'd be covering
Yeah, they
a lot of new vocabulary
retain
and
all
new
of that.
grammar.
Yeah, to retain all of that and to cram all of that in 1 hour, 2 lessons is a lot.
Right.
They
Okay.
really like the switching over to a different type of activity like reading stories and so the focus is a little different.
Gotcha. Okay.
Hey,
We'll have to look at that again then.
yeah, I taught with the Ventures an advanced beginner group several years ago, and I concur with Betty. You know,
Okay.
I think maybe we got to 8
Okay.
throughout the entire year.
Okay. And we do have, sorry, it is going to cut us off in 1 minute, so we'll have to hop back on. Mary Lee, can we get your question right after we hop back on? Okay, let's do 5 minutes. So at 2:35, and you'll just click the exact same link from the email and we'll hop back on. So we'll just take a 5-minute break. Sound good? And Mary Lee, you'll be right after that. Okay, thank you. All right, see you in 5.
Mm-hmm.